Right. So let's just get some workflow going in Reaper. I'm just assuming that you have some basic project opened, and what I'm going to do is I'm also just going to open up something. So I'm going to go to recent projects, and under that I'm just opening the project which we have for our course. So whatever you already have now, it will remove that and it'll open the next project which you're searching for. So you could go to file and then go to recents, and as you can see the project loads up nice and shiny with all these fancy colors. And the first thing you'll observe is these are all tracks. Track, and the tracks are two kinds of tracks. You have MIDI tracks, which are these guys, which look like this. You can also double click inside the MIDI track to see the data further with the piano roll here. And yeah, along with the MIDI track, you also have the audio tracks, which show you the waveform, where you're going to be recording things like the bass or actual instruments which you're recording. And these audio tracks could either be things which you are recording from your own studio room, like playing a guitar or singing. This will all show up here. In addition to that, you could also look at loops. You could go to view, you could find loops from your media explorer, and then if you have any loops, I'll also give you a few of mine. You can then bring these loops in. This is what someone else played, as you can see, and you can bring it into your project as well and get cracking with these loops. And just to show you the main windows, this is what you call as the track control panel, also known as the TCP. This is the arrangement window where you do all your arranging. You'll see all your waveforms or your MIDI data recorded. You can scroll like this, just the normal way, left, right, or whatever, right? Some of you, if you do two-finger scroll, it will basically zoom in or zoom out. So just figure that out. If all that fails, you always have these plus and minus buttons here to make everything bigger in height or bigger horizontally, so you can see the information a bit clear or a bit more like a bird's eye. This is your timeline. So if you want to go to, let's say, bar number 65, you're at bar number 65 for instance, and you can hear whatever it is playing. Okay, and then you may want to also consider these important icons. Okay, the first off thing you'll see is the metronome. You can enable it here. Check out some of the settings of the metronome, which you can figure out by right clicking. Then you can also look at the grid. You can turn the grid lines on or off here, very important. Or you can do something called snapping, where everything you do will snap to the grid pointer, the grid mark. So if you go here, if I turn the grid lines on, it snaps. Right? If I turn the magnet or the snapping off, it goes off. You can move things more freely. And you also have something called lock, which locks some of your items. So for example, if I lock something, let me just show you that again. If I turn locking on, enable locking here, or you can touch, if you can touch that, you can't move anything. But if I disable locking, then you can move it. So that may be a bit scary to be able to move as a newcomer. So I would recommend turn locking on as much as possible after you have finished recording or while you're starting to mix. Right? Then you have your items here. You have the track view. You have the arrangement area. And then in this area is what we call as the mixer. If you're on a laptop, you may want to hide the mixer. So you don't need to really see it as such. You can do it. You can hide it by going Command M or Control M on the Windows. So then you can see all your tracks. And as you can see, in each track, I can make it bigger, smaller, and I have the opportunity to record arm it. If I want to record over it or record onto a new track, I can even adjust the volume of the track. I can adjust the pan, which moves it left to the left ear or the left speaker, or I can pan it, and whenever you double click on anything in Reaper, it goes back to default. Solo, you'll only hear that. Mute, you won't hear that. And by muting, it also frees up your computer to uh, on based on whatever's running there. So it turns off everything as well, disables plugins. So here you have your routing, which we'll get into later, where you're sending this to, and so on. Here you have your effects. So here you see I have my virtual instrument, the piano. You can even turn it off, turn it on, or you'll see your real instruments. You can see the effects which got added on the real instrument, like an EQ, and you can add your effects. So you have an effects section, and then if you want, you can monitor it while recording. You can record arm, and then you can get into recording. You can adjust your input. However, once it's already been recorded, you may not want to bother about all these things because you finished recording the track, right? And then you'll have things like nesting. You can have all your voices go through one folder, what we call as a track folder. So if I solo that, you'll hear only the vocals. Or you'll have only the horns. So it's good control over everything, right? So this is an overview of the track panel, the arranger. Then you can always bring in other things. You can bring in, you see these things on the right, what I call as the track manager, or what Reaper calls as the track manager rather. You have all the tracks, so you can show, hide all this stuff. You can even go here to see all your regions or your markers. So you can bring things in and out as you choose. You can bring back the mixer, you can hide all the windows, So there are a lot of ways to keep your project more and more accessible. So this is an overview of Reaper, just the things inside Reaper. And then of course, when you have your tracks here, when it's all set up for you, you can adjust it. You can fade it in or fade it out. You can also go to a certain point by maybe hitting the S. Go to a certain point, hit S, it creates a cut or a split, and then you can adjust it accordingly. Right? That's pretty much it. Remove the split, and you can even maybe make a selection and do Shift S, and then the selection becomes a new cut or a new item or a new clip, as you call it. And that's pretty much it. This is the setup for Reaper.